This is ACC Amit Kumar, and we'll discuss the sessions on consolidation. This is one of my favorite topic, and we'll be discussing the standards on consolidation IAS 28 investment in associates. So we'll discuss these standards as we progress. IAS 28 investment in associates, IFRS 3 business combinations, IFRS 10 consolidated financial statements, IFRS 11 for joint arrangements, and IFRS 12 for disclosures relating to consolidated financial statements. I'll write CFS. Now, before I begin with them, I need to talk about what existed before these standards were introduced. Now, if you see, there's a new name, new number. So what was prevalent before introduction of IFRS 10, IFRS 11, IFRS 12? Earlier, there was a standard known as IAS 27, which used to talk about separate and consolidated financial statements. IAS 28 is investment in associates and joint ventures. It's not just investment in associates. It used to be just investment in associates earlier. IAS 28 was the standard which was just for associates. There used to be a standard known as IAS 31, interests in joint ventures. And IFRS 3 as usual was existing as it is relevant and applicable today, business combinations. So IFRS 3 is still relevant and applicable. IAS 28 is investment in associates and joint ventures because IAS 31 is merged into this. The reason being, investment in associates, the associate accounting was done on equity accounting. Investment in joint ventures had a choice of either equity accounting or proportionate consolidation. But in the new IAS 28, so the option of proportionate consolidation has been taken away from joint ventures. There is nothing known as proportionate consolidation now. There's only one method of accounting for associates and joint ventures. It is equity accounting. I'll talk about what is equity accounting and what is proportionate consolidation and line by line consolidation as I progress. Now the difference between IAS 27 and IFRS 10 consolidated financial statements. IAS 27 is today only separate, belonging to only separate financial statements. The consolidation component is being treated through IFRS 10 consolidated financial statements. So as far as consolidation procedures are concerned, there is no change. Line by line consolidation, a parent acquiring a subsidiary, how the consolidation of parent plus subsidiary is going to be done. There is no change. The way it was being done earlier, same is the method being followed today. But what is the basic difference between the previous standard and this standard? The basic difference is in the definition of control. The previous definition of control, it is more elaborative. IFRS 10 elaborates the definition of control. This is giving complete details around control and clarifies the limitations previous standard had. So if I look at the basic difference between IAS 27 separate and consolidated financial statements and IFRS 10, the basic difference is in the area of defining control. What does control means? That you have power over investee, you have exposure to variable returns, you have risk. There is a link between power and control. There is de facto control. So there are many methods in which control happens. As we all know that IFRS is principle based accounting. And there's an assumption that if an entity has more than 50% control over another entity, it is considered a subsidiary. But IFRS is of the other view that it's not necessary to have more than 50% voting right or investment. Even if the voting right is less than 50% or the investment is less than 50%, one entity may still be able to control another entity. So why do we need to prepare consolidated financial statements? So there's a requirement that the requirement is that we need to identify if on the last day of the reporting period, if the entity is controlling another entity, they are required to present consolidated financial statements along with standalone financial statements. So where is the analysis to define whether one entity is controlling another entity or not? How that control is defined? One way is the normal way. If more than 50% voting right, de facto control, control by statute or agreement, control by acquisition, of potential voting rights. That there are potential voting rights which can be converted into shares, and this right can be exercised anytime. This can also result in a control. So this is principle based accounting. In spite of having less than 50% voting rights, there can be control, like de facto control. De facto means there's an investor who is holding 45% and remaining 55% are scattered. Someone is holding 1%, someone is holding 2%, 3%. They all are scattered, they are not united. So in spite of holding less than 50%, indirectly, automatically, there is a de facto control. So even if there is a de facto control, it is assumed to have control on the last day of the reporting period. And this entity is required to present consolidated financial statements, even if their investment is less than 50%. It's not necessary to cross the investment level of 50%. This was a loophole which was being used by the entities, that they were not investing beyond 50%. They were investing only 49% in the entities. It happened in most of the Gulf states that the king owned 51% and the other entities were owning only 49%. They were able to avoid consolidation simply because they were owning 49%. They were not owning. But in IFRS, control means the power to control means power to direct financial and operating policy decisions. Now, can you tell me what is a financial and operating policy decision? Anyone? What events or transactions an entity is able to control that they are supposed to prepare consolidated financial statements, which can be an additional burden on them to present to the general public? What they control in terms of financial decisions? Appointment of KMP, key management personnel. So this is one of the operating decisions. Financial decision will be how they are funded, from which sources they'll borrow, where they'll invest. Operating policy decisions will be what is the budget, how many goods they need to produce this time, what is the decision for future, how the things are happening on ground. If they are able to control and track whatever is happening on ground in the subsidiary company, they are directly involved in financial and operating policy decisions of that entity, and they are able to direct whatever happens on ground in a subsidiary company. It's indirectly their own company. So if you're controlling something, if there is a machinery which is located in the subsidiary company, and if you're able to direct and control it, if you're able to use it the way you want, you are a parent, it is indirectly your company. Is the reason consolidated financial statements are treated as a single economic entity. So we prepare financial statements as if we are a single economic entity. We are not separate from the group. Parent and subsidiary are considered one single entity. And if you are one single entity, how you will represent yourself to the world? You cannot claim assets or liabilities from each other. Whatever assets belong to the group, they belong to the group. Whatever liabilities exist, liabilities not with each other. What they are liable to pay to third parties other than them, other than parent and subsidiary. That is a liability of the group, because group is a single economic entity. So it is on the basis of consolidated financial statements are prepared on single economic entity concept. Though from exam point of view, like you may be required to assess whether this control exists or not. You may do that assessment. But from exam point of view, we will assume if the investment is more than 50%, we'll consider it a subsidiary. Investment is more than 50% and less than 100%. We'll say that there is a subsidiary which this is 100% owned subsidiary, 100% owned. It is still a subsidiary if the investment is more than 100%, but there is an existence of non-controlling interest as well. If the investment is less than 100%, there exists a non-controlling interest. We need to value them as well. We need to value non-controlling interest, but that's a choice we have available. Investment is more than 20% and less than 50%. What is it? What is it? It will be considered as an associate, where we have significant influence. What does significant influence means? Significant influence means power to participate in the financial and operating policy decisions. From IFRS's point of view, it's not necessary to be exactly 20%. Even if it is 18%, there can be still a significant influence and can be considered your associate. So look at the difference. Power to direct financial and operating policy decisions, control. Power to participate means significant influence. You can influence the decisions, but you cannot control the decisions. The best example is of selection of chairman of Tata Group. Cyrus Mistry was appointed chairman of Tata Group. Why? Because his father Sapurji Palonji had 18% stake in Tata Group. In spite of having less than 20%, being the owner of 18%, he was significantly able to influence the decision of who will be the chairman of Tata Group. So according to IFRS, it's not necessary to hold more than 20% and less than 50%. In spite of having 18%, if someone is able to influence the economic decisions, they are required to show it as an investment in associate. It is not a simple mere investment traded in the public market. There is a significant influence involved, so it has to be shown as an investment in associate. Investments less than 20% are to be treated under IFRS 9 financial instruments. So there is a separate standard for it, for dealing with the investments where the investment is less than 20%. Either you're holding them for trading, either you're holding them for a longer period, whatever the decision, you're holding these contractual cash flow investments till maturity. Whatever your decision, if the investments are less than 20%, if you're trading in equity, whether you're trading for a longer period, you can show it as part of fair value or fair value through OCI. This will discuss in the standard financial instruments. The total 100% investment in any entity is decided. Less than 20, IFRS 9 financial statements. More than 20, less than 50, associate. More than 50 and less than 100, there is a subsidiary as well as non-controlling interest. 100% owned subsidiary, it will be merely your subsidiary. First means the investment is more than 50%. More than 50%, you are owning it 100%, it's your complete subsidiary. There is no existence of NCI. But if your investment is more than 50% and less than 100 means is 80-20, 80% and 20% owned by NCI. Though it is more than 50 but less than 100. This is 100% subsidiary, fully owned. Even if I don't write this line, if I write I hope this will make more sense. Fully acquired or fully owned. Fully owned. Is this fine? Pankaj will discuss when to call a joint venture. Just wait. I was coming onto it. If the venturers decide to jointly control the financial and operating policy decisions, it will be considered a joint venture. Joint control means without the unanimous, so it requires unanimous consent of all parties. If all the parties do not agree, a decision cannot be made. Joint venture can be joint ventures. The investments can be between venturers, can be 50-50. It can be 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, or it can be 25, it can be 35, it can be 30. The moment we look at the word joint venture, we believe that it has to be same. It's not necessarily has to be the same. It's simply a decision that all the parties need to be present to jointly control the financial and operating policy decisions. The investments may not be equal. It's not necessary to be equal 33, 33, 33. It can be 25, 35, 30. It can be 10, 10, 10 ventures each holding 10 each. It may be 7 ventures, some of them may be holding 15, some of them may be holding 12, some of them may be holding 10%. It can be any combination. It's not necessary to be equal investment by venturers. It's simply a decision that they will be jointly controlling it. And joint ventures are treated through equity accounting. Now, what is equity accounting? What is equity in a balance sheet? Net worth, net assets. If you're making an investment in a joint venture, what is your expectation? If you're making an investment in an associate, what is your expectation? That you wish to see your investment grow in terms of equity, and how it grows in terms of equity, that you made an investment in an equity or capital. There's investment of $100,000. How it will grow? It will grow if the company makes profits during the year. So the equity is going to grow with the profits during the year, not exposed to market value. So when your intention is to grow in terms of equity, we are required to do equity accounting, which means that equity accounting, which means that there is some cost of investment. We have invested in an associate or joint venture. There is an investment. The investment is $100,000. This investment is going to grow with the profit made during the year. Share of profit from associate or joint venture. whatever is the profit received from them during the year will be the share of profit from that associate or joint venture. Suppose if there is 25% investment and the profits are 40,000, then 10,000 profit added. 25% of profit for the year. This is subject to impairment testing as well, because there is an investment which may not be recovered over time, less impairment if any. And this investment cannot go below zero unless there are guarantees given by the investor that will also suffer losses beyond zero. If someone has made an investment of 1 lakh, if it impairs, it can be brought down to zero, but not beyond that. Will not show any minus amounts into our books. If you have made an investment of 1 lakh, if it depletes, your 1 lakh gone. They cannot claim anything beyond $1 lakh. Can they claim that if you made an investment of 100,000, can they claim more than what you have invested? It can get depleted, it can be zero, but they cannot demand any money beyond it unless you have given a guarantee. Unless you have assumed some obligation that will be liable, that if there are any further losses, you will be liable, then only some other amount will come beyond zero. Otherwise, it can deplete to zero. This is known as equity accounting. You are interested in presenting your investment in the form of equity investment, and you wish to grow in terms of equity. You made some investment, it grows by profits, it depletes by impairment if there is any. This is known as equity accounting. So this is the accounting being done for associates and joint ventures. We'll discuss it in more detail when I'm discussing IFRS 11 joint arrangements about joint ventures. Equity accounting associate is simple one thing, that if there is investment of more than 20% and less than 50% is considered your associate, you need to show it in a single line item. So an associate is presented in a single line in balance sheet and P&L. What is that single line in the balance sheet? In the balance sheet, it will come in a single line. Whatever is the investment in associate, it will be shown as investment in associate. Even joint venture is single line, investment in associate or joint venture. That is known as equity accounting. In the P&L, it will be presented in a single line, share of profit from associate or joint venture. Share of profit from associate or joint venture. Presented in a single line in the balance sheet and income statement. That is known as equity accounting. Pankaj, hope it is clear. All the investments are in front of you now. Now, if you're owning a subsidiary, it is required to be consolidated, and we do line by line consolidation. So this was earlier, there used to be a term known as proportionate consolidation. Proportionate consolidation is prohibited today. It was allowed in IAS 31 interest in joint ventures, but this standard no more exists today. There's no concept of proportionate consolidation. So if you have a subsidiary on the last day of the reporting period, what is the requirement? If you have a subsidiary, the entity is controlling another entity. When you are controlling another entity, it is known as subsidiary, an extension of you. They're required to present consolidated financial statements along with standalone financial statements. How do we do this consolidation?